How did movie Sonic go from looking like this to looking like this? Well, over the course of the 5 Sonic movie universe projects that the character's been featured in, his design has progressively been tweaked, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed. So in today's video, I thought we would go over the history of movie Sonic's design and talk about all of the little differences that have occurred since the first Sonic movie in 2020 all the way up until Sonic Movie 3 in 2024. As I'm sure many of you know, Sonic's design in Sonic Movie 1 went through many changes. It's almost like his design being changed from this to this was one of the biggest points in Hollywood history. The discussion of ugly Sonic has been discussed way too much on YouTube, so we're not going to fixate on that too much. Instead, we're going to be starting with the finalized design we ended up getting in the first movie, which is this design by Tyson Hesse. After the atrocious reception of the first Sonic movie trailer, Tyson tossed up this image of his rendition of the design on Twitter, being much more faithful to what Paramount was initially going for, but still being more faithful to Sonic's original design at the same time with more cartoonish-like features. Hesse would then be brought in to lead the design of the movie, and then would be upgraded to a co-producer on Sonic Movie 2, the Knuckles TV show, and Sonic Movie 3, while also juggling roles as a storyboard supervisor and lead character designer. Well, in Sonic Movie 1, the only CGI Sonic character we had in the movie was Sonic, so a lot more time and energy and effort was able to be put into that one character. But at the same time, the movie was originally scheduled for a November 2019 release. With them completely redesigning the character, the film had to be delayed to the following year in February. While they would still have plenty of time to animate the character, it probably wasn't the ideal time to get everything tweaked out. Keep in mind, there was a whole pre-production, shooting the movie, and then entire animation on the character itself that already occurred prior to any idea of a redesign, so they were essentially starting from scratch with an entire new design being put into an environment with a different one in mind. It's quite apparent that the main goal for the first Sonic movie was to make Sonic as cute and not ugly as possible. But in terms of the character himself, not even his design, this was our first real introduction to a younger Sonic in terms of personality. In a lot of other media, Sonic can feel like that teenager, or he can feel like a 40-something-year-old man. While it's not entirely specified what Sonic's age is in the first Sonic movie, it's speculated that it could be anywhere from 12 to 14. So that's why he's significantly shorter, has much bigger eyes, and is overall more cartoony. One of the original goals with the first Sonic movie was making this hedgehog as realistic as possible, and that didn't obviously turn out too well. So once when the redesign was in process, that mindset almost went completely out of the window. While yes, the character is still designed for a realistic environment, Paramount and their design team wasn't being nearly as strict with their realistic goal. Not just that, but with the aforementioned short amount of time to animate this character, it helped amplify the more cutesy, cartoonish Sonic, which is what we end up seeing in the movie. To many a Sonic fan, this is still their favorite version of the movie Sonic design. I love how cute Sonic looks in this movie, and I'm also a big fan of Dark Blue Sonic, which, spoiler alert, this movie does far better than the upcoming projects. Speaking of upcoming projects, the next project we would see movie Sonic in would be Sonic Movie 2. While not to the same extent of Sonic Movie 1, Sonic Movie 2 would be faced with different production problems. While they would get a standard pre-production and post-production cycle, this film was in production in the middle of the coronavirus. While not just with Sonic Movie 2, but movies in general, a lot of visual effects were not that great looking at this time. There are a lot of examples in Sonic Movie 2 that you can point to where there are some not great looking shots, and for this movie, 2 entirely new characters are introduced that they had to make models for, so a new updated rig was made for Sonic to not only fit in with his other furry friends, but also to refine some things that they weren't able to do the first time around with the first movie. While the base of movie Sonic's design wouldn't change or alter in really any way, with the normal period for animation, they were able to do a lot more with Sonic's new updated model this time around. One of the things seemed to have been just making Sonic a little bigger to signify him growing up, as well as the addition of brow muscles, it appears, allowing Sonic to be a lot more expressive this time around. And keep these brow muscles in mind as we go throughout the video, but like I said earlier, this movie was still animated regardless of all the changes around the time of COVID-19. And not just that, but with the very fast turnaround from the first movie and the second, only being a little over 2 years from release, things can just look unpolished and strange at points with the VFX, which also contributes specifically to Sonic. So yes, while Sonic's rig has changed, at the core it is still movie Sonic at the end of the day. So why does it look so inherently different? Well, what a lot of people don't talk about is lighting and cinematography in movies. The cinematographer for the first Sonic movie in 2020 was Stephen F. Windon, and then on the subsequent 2 films would be followed up by Brandon Trost. When people are discussing the difference between Sonic Movie 1 and the following films, this is often left out out of the conversation. Cinematography and your cinematographer is one of the most quintessential parts of your filmmaking process. It's what builds the visual identity of your film at its core, so that when visual effects go in after, it kind of follows after that. The two movies use very different settings which require different lighting. This applies to the on-set shooting and VFX lighting. Sonic looks much brighter in this movie with a much more washed out blue, simply because that's how the movie was shot. Darker scenes in Sonic Movie 2 will depict him looking much more similar to his first movie's counterpart, simply because a lot of that first movie is shot in darker areas. And also remember having an entirely different cinematographer who had different methods for how he wanted to portray the movie visually. And also should be noted that Sonic has actually been completely refurred in Sonic Movie 2, which explains him looking a lot more rough and fluffy than the first movie, where he looks a lot more clean and well put together, if you will. Now, this model that Sonic would be given in Sonic Movie 2 would be used for the rest of the upcoming Sonic Movie Universe projects, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if this continues with Sonic Movie 4. But I'm sure many of you are asking, okay, this explains some of the differences between the first and second movie, but in the upcoming projects, he still looks so different. Let's go ahead and dive into the closest to Sonic Movie 2 project, Sonic Drone Home, the animated short that was released alongside the Sonic Movie 2 physical home releases. Here's what Sonic looks like in the short. Pretty great, right? That's Movie Sonic. Well, this short was entirely helmed by Marza Animation Planet. Yes, the Marza who did such things as the opening for Sonic Unleashed. While for the movies themselves, Marza does contribute in some ways, they are not the sole animators of the Sonic movies. Blur, ILM, and more traditional Hollywood animation houses are at the forefront of the animation for those movies with assistance from Marza. However, with Drone Home, they are the sole animators, which means that they used an entirely different animation process and lighting system. So yes, Drone Home does stick to the same models used in Sonic Movie 2, but remember, this isn't Sonic Movie 2. This is a completely animated short, set in a completely animated world. And unlike the real films, they're not trying to make Sonic and Friends fit a live-action environment. Everything is much more cartoonish and cute here, which works perfectly fine. It doesn't look like the movies because it's not trying to be the movies. It's very much so its own thing made by its own team of people, which is not a team that has the same manpower that the Sonic movies have. This is really just a handful of people in the grand scheme of things. I've always kind of thought of Drone Home as one of those DreamWorks animation TV shows that went straight on Nickelodeon, like Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness. It still looks really good and similar to the movies, but it's not exactly at that movie quality, which should be expected when you have a much smaller team and not as much money as a full-length theatrical release. But after Drone Home, we would receive an actual TV project, the Paramount Plus series, Knuckles. Knuckles is a TV show, but was helmed by a lot of the Sonic movie team, and with Paramount behind the project themselves, this had a significantly larger budget of around $90 million it's estimated, although that can't be confirmed. But unfortunately, that still doesn't mean you're going to get the same level of animation quality you would out of the actual movies themselves, because Sonic here doesn't look the best. Like I just said, the Sonic Movie 2 model will be used for the rest of these, so I don't want any of you guys thinking that this is a different model. Now, Sonic would only appear in Knuckles for the first episode, which has the same cinematographer as Sonic Movie 2, Brendan Trost. Not only that, but Jeff Fowler was the director of this first episode. So who or what is to quote-unquote blame for Sonic looking so strange in this if a lot of the same exact creative team returned to do the visuals of the actual filming for this TV show? A lot of this can simply be attributed towards the animation process. Remember, this is a TV show that in its first episode alone has roughly 4 fully CGI animated characters in this, not to mention the other VFX that went into this one episode alone. So I'm sure a lot of you get where I'm going with this. This is just a TV show budget. And for a TV show, it looks pretty good, but clearly is off in comparison to the standards that we've had from the first and second movie. But for a show that has 8 other episodes in it that still feature Knuckles, as well as a lot of other needs for VFX and battle and action sequences, it's not a surprise that their budget was just stretched a little thin. And for a show called Knuckles, the Sonic character probably wasn't at the top of the priority list to make sure that he looked pristine, especially with him only being in one episode. You probably see these shots brought up a lot when it comes to Sonic and his appearance in this particular show, but believe me, there's so many shots in this first episode where he looks great and very similar to how he looked in Sonic Movie 2. In fact, the most infamous shots of Sonic from this show are really just kind of cherry-picked. Not that it's my favorite way that movie Sonic has looked, I still much prefer his look in Sonic Movie 1 and even 2 to this. I don't think it's as bad as people say, but there is a noticeable difference, and I think that explains why. it's a TV show. That brings us to the most recent Sonic movie universe project, Sonic Movie 3. This is the project where I think fans have warmed up to the Sonic Movie 2 model design the most. It undeniably looks better than it ever has in this particular movie. But why is that? This movie released in 2024, with a lot of its post-production occurring in that year and also 2023, meaning that this was a post-COVID era movie. The production pipeline was able to go smoothly, and that included the animation process. Not just that, but there were extra hands on board this time around with an increased budget. But the first two Sonic movies, they were mainly handled by Blur, Marza, and random animation houses that just helped with the process. But after the success of the first two Sonic movies, that meant that they were able to increase their budget and bring out the big guns by bringing in Industrial Light and Magic to help with the animation process, which included character models. Sonic and Friends are just far more detailed here, using the lighting of the on-set environments to its advantage, which helps make those forehead wrinkles not look as jarring. Despite having the same cinematographer, the movie somehow just looks significantly better here than it did in Sonic Movie 2, which could very well be attributed towards this not being a quote-unquote COVID-era movie. While a lot of people still prefer the model for the first Sonic movie, and I might fall in that camp, this still looks amazing and truly shows the potential of that new model they made for the Sonic character in Sonic Movie 2. So there you guys have it. That's why Sonic went from looking like this to looking like this. This has been a long-running topic in the Sonic fan base ever since the movies really started, so I thought the internet deserved a video discussing the reasons why. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure that you subscribe and support the channel. I need to pay my bills and feed my children, please. And thank you to Figgies for sponsoring this video. If you guys don't already know what Figgies is, it's a brand new unique line of collectibles featuring your favorite franchises, including, yes, Sonic the Hedgehog. They already released their first wave featuring classic Sonic characters such as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Metal Sonic, and Figgies has been nice enough to send me their second wave of Sonic collectibles. Wave 2 is all modern Sonic characters, which I know a lot of you have been waiting for, and it features none other than Sonic the Hedgehog himself, Tails, Shadow the Hedgehog, and my favorite of the set, Silver. I absolutely love these, and I think I like them even more than the first wave. And if you guys want to get your hands on the newest wave of Figgies and save some money, use my code or click the link in the description below to get 5% off your Figgies order. These are some of the most popular pieces of Sonic merch on the market right now, so get them while they're hot. And once again, thank you to Figgies for sponsoring this video.
And be right by the motherfucking seaside, dog. Everything I see, I got a dream. I thought these leaves would go and take me out the dark. I know everything I wanted to far away. Yeah, 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 yeah. I know everything I want ain't that far.